La question de Noureddin et du détroit d'Hormuz. La situation actuelle, en effet, la fermeture cause d'énormes dommages et le rétablissement de la liberté de navigation revêt pour nous une importance capitale. Nous rejetons et continuerons de rejeter toute mesure ou arrangement qui entrave la sécurité maritime et qui limiterait la liberté de passage dans le détroit d'Hormuz, conformément au droit international.
Je voudrais savoir la réaction de l'Union européenne par rapport à l'embargo imposé par les États-Unis contre l'Iran dans les eaux internationales, enfin, en face de détroit. J'ai bien entendu hier le speech de Mme von der Leyen, mais aussi les déclarations de Mme, le discours de Mme Kallas au Conseil de sécurité. Cet embargo n'a pas été mentionné. Quelle est l'attitude de l'Union européenne par rapport à ça? Deuxièmement, dans quelle mesure l'Union européenne pourrait participer, sinon pourrait aider la coalition qui est en train d'être montée par la France et la Grande-Bretagne pour protéger la liberté de navigation dans le détroit d'Hormuz?
S'agissant de la question de Noureddin et du détroit d'Hormuz. La situation actuelle, en effet, la fermeture cause d'énormes dommages et le rétablissement de la liberté de navigation revêt pour nous une importance capitale. Nous rejetons et continuerons de rejeter toute mesure ou arrangement qui entrave la sécurité maritime et qui limiterait la liberté de passage dans le détroit d'Hormuz, conformément au droit international. Ce qui se passe en effet aujourd'hui dans le détroit d'Hormuz constitue un appel très clair à ce jour en faveur d'une coalition internationale forte en matière de sécurité maritime. S'agissant des initiatives que nous voyons éclore et émerger sur le terrain, de nombreuses initiatives sont sur la table, mais les objectifs restent très simples, à savoir un passage libre et en toute sécurité pour tous les bateaux via cet itinéraire, le détroit d'Hormuz. Nous, Union européenne, nous saluons et avons salué toutes les initiatives annoncées par les États membres, y compris au moyen d'une coordination renforcée avec nos partenaires dans la région afin de garantir cette liberté de navigation dans les détroits d'Hormuz. Nous nous félicitons déjà de l'excellente coordination et du bon soutien que nous voyons avec nos opérations maritimes existantes, telles Atalanta et Aspides, et il est essentiel de maintenir et de renforcer cette coordination dans un environnement qui est, comme nous le voyons, volatile.
Donner la possibilité, mais vas-y.
Okay, the main issue was, as Noah mentioned, of course, the opening of the Strait of Hormuz, but she also said in the beginning of her speech that an agreement, a comprehensive agreement on ending all the war, should address both the nuclear and the ballistic missile programs of Iran. But she didn't mention, for some reason, the need to disarm Hezbollah, which, as we know, acts as a proxy for Iran in Lebanon. I wonder if that was a coincidence, or if that is still, the position of the EU, which you talked a lot about before, Anouar. And in that case, what exactly can be done in order to implement that? Because until now, at least, it seems that the Lebanese army is too weak and underfinanced to carry out that mission. So what can be done to strengthen it in the, let's say, in the framework of a peace process between Israel and Lebanon? Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Indeed, the President didn't mention it explicitly yesterday, but she mentioned it several times that she has called, and not just called, she also lent all support to President Aoun's efforts to disarm Hezbollah. That goes without saying. So even if she didn't mention it again yesterday, absolutely, she sees the need to disarm Hezbollah in this process and lends all support to President Aoun. So we'll call Marcus before we wrap up for today.
The question is, Johannes Perterer here, again, Austrian National Television. The Commission addressed the looming jet fuel crisis in its energy package, which is supposed to come on April 22nd, as Europe's Airport Association warns of a supply shortage of jet fuels within 3 weeks, and airlines call for joint EU fuel monitoring and procurement.
Thank you. Yes, Anna Kaiser, on jet fuels.
To start with, there is no evidence for fuel shortages in the European Union at present, but supply issues could occur in the near future, in particular for jet fuels, as you mentioned. We coordinate very, very closely with our member states and the industry at the moment. There was the Energy Union Task Force meeting last Friday, which confirmed that crude oil supplies to the European Union refineries remain stable, with no need for additional stock releases at the present. However, and coming to the jet fuel situation that you mentioned, that remains our primary concern at the moment. EU refineries cover around 70% of EU's consumption, and all the rest comes from imports or is reliant on imports. So our job and our role at the moment is to coordinate and gather a full situational awareness and real-time information about the situation, which is why we are now convening oil and gas coordination groups on a weekly basis.
In relation to the first question, I have to say that I consider essential that these negotiations go on. I think it would be unrealistic to expect to such a complex problem, long-lasting problem, could be resolved in the first session of a negotiation. So we need negotiations to go on, and we need a ceasefire to persist as negotiations go on.
Good afternoon.
Justice is meant to be blind, but today too many are choosing to turn a blind eye to justice itself. Around the world, and starkly in the Middle East, respect for international law is being trampled. Rules governing the use of force and the conduct of hostilities are ignored. Civilians are exposed to intolerable harm, humanitarian obligations are disregarded, and even the protections afforded to the United Nations and our personnel are violated. This wholesale assault on international law has consequences. Lawlessness breeds chaos. Lawlessness fuels suffering. Lawlessness leads to destruction. And this is not the moment to retreat from international law. It's the moment to reaffirm it. That is why later this week I will travel to The Hague to mark the 80th anniversary of the International Court of Justice. The ICJ is the principal judicial organ of the United Nations and the pillar of the international legal order. For 8 decades, the Court has fulfilled that role with distinction. But this visit is not simply about commemorating an anniversary. It's about sending an unmistakable message. A message that the United Nations stands firmly behind the institutions and principles designed to protect peace, justice, sovereignty, and human dignity. A message that international law applies to all states without exception, and that respect for its rules is not optional. A message that in a world moving toward greater fragmentation and sharper power competition, international law is indispensable. Without it, instability spreads, mistrust deepens, and conflicts spiral out of control. This applies everywhere, and it applies urgently to the conflict in the Middle East. There is no military solution to this crisis. Peace agreements require persistent engagement and political will. Serious negotiations must resume, and the ceasefire must be preserved and extended as necessary. International navigational rights and freedoms, including in the Strait of Hormuz, must be respected by all parties. It's time for restraint and responsibility. It's time for diplomacy over escalation. And it's time for a renewed commitment to international law. Thank you.